It's in you.
Only as one is willing to give up his present limitations and identity can he become that which he desires to be. Neville Goddard.
I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Proud of myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this trade.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast that helps you be the leader. I'm Jeramiah Solven, and as you guys know, I'm your host. If this is your first time listening, this is a podcast that's designed to teach you how to win. We help you with leadership, high performance, mindset, goal setting, and achievement, leading yourself and leading others, all the soft skills that you need to get your team and yourself to victory. Guys, if you are new, what I ask is that we grow this podcast organically. And so if you find today's episode, just do me a solid. If you find it valuable, share it with a friend, leave a review, just pay that small fee to keep us rocking and rolling. I'm not going to run ads for the show, and I just ask that in return, but only if you guys laugh or learn along the way. Okay. I feel like that's a fair deal, but it's been a while since we jumped on, and I'm excited for today's episode because I had the privilege of going up and seeing Major Steel. And as many of you guys know, Major Steel is the culmination of all the great leaders I've had in my life. You know, sometimes when I was a kid, maybe that person was my wrestling coach. When I was in the military, maybe it was, my first sergeant or, somebody that I served with. So Major Steel has worn a lot of different hats, but there's a certain individual that has been in my life since really 2018. And I was fortunate enough to go up and see him this last weekend. I've been on the road since March, living out of Airbnbs, as many of you guys know, just enjoying the dream and meeting people, traveling around and just having a good time. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to go up there and sit down with him. And on the way, I was also blessed with a great opportunity. Another one of his mentees needed a ride and he wanted to go see him as well. And so we decided to jump in the car together, travel from Southern Florida to Northern Florida. And we kicked it off so well. It was just like this synergy between us. I decided, hey man, we need to get together and record an episode because I love your mindset. I love where you're headed. And I think that the questions that you're asking me on this car ride would be very valuable for my audience. And I'd love to get you in front of them as well to share your winning mindset. And as you guys know, I like to be an architect of my ecosystem. I like to be very, very intentional with who I bring in, because there's really only two types of people in the world. And that's people that are going to lift you up and people that are going to bring you down, people that are going to help you get to your goals and people that are going to slow you down. And so when I find somebody that is pushing me, challenging me in some capacity, I'm like, man, I want to add you to my circle, to my dream team, as Major Steel has taught me. So I have an awesome guest today that's he's going to co-host the show, ask me some questions about who I am and pull out some strategies and tactics that you guys can benefit from in leadership, high performance, and overall success. So that co-host is Norvell, aka Velli Unlimited. He's a former D1 football player from Canada. He's spent decades of his life up there, and I'm excited to bring him in and unpack today's lesson for all you guys to learn from and execute on. So without further ado, hey man, Norvell, come on in, my man, and let's rock this thing.
Hey brother, thanks for the opportunity and the good little intro there. Yeah, football's been pretty much all my life. So, switching over and having guys like you is definitely a great opportunity.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And you're not only is that an awesome thing that you committed yourself to, sports just teach you so much about life. They teach you how to build a strong mindset. They teach you how to succeed. But I see, you're a guy that's continuously pushing himself and challenging himself. Guys, gals listening, Norvell, he literally packed up everything and he moved to the United States. He moved to Florida from Canada in the last few months to chase his dream. He's got his brand Unlimited that he's building, and he's basically burnt the ships so that there's no going home. Now he will visit from time to time, but he's all in on his dream. And I love his example that he's setting. Is that right, Norvell? That's pretty much what sums you up right now, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. And I literally sold my car. So, about a year ago or 2 years ago, I bought my dream car, which I thought at the time, which was a Dodge Challenger. And, I was living life. I was like, yes, I'm here. And it's funny. I actually saw an episode of you talk about complacency, and I just felt uncomfortable. I was getting into fights with myself constantly. Like, why am I not happy? I wanted this car for so long. And so, yeah, I ended up selling it, and I'm here in Miami, Florida. Just chasing the dream, man.
Dude, tell me, and just briefly, I know this is going to be a Q&A on me, but I want to know a little bit about the dream that you are chasing, and a little bit about the success, because we'll probably have some touch points on the podcast throughout time, and it'd be cool for the audience to know your story, and they can follow you on social media too. So what's the dream that you're chasing so that we can all follow along?
I just want Unlimited to be globally changing people's lives. During our conversation on the road, I think the four basics of life to me are abundance of wealth, health, freedom, and fun. So I think it's very important that you try to be a 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100, whatever your scale is, in all four of those, and you'll be pretty content with your life when you are dead.
Man, that's a great message for the world to adopt. So I can see why I'm reminded why we're on this episode again today, because we're both have similar missions for the people around us, man. So what do you got today? Let me kind of hand it over to you and kind of put myself in the hot seat. I'm usually the one on the other side, right? But let's hear what you got and what direction you want to take today's episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question I really wanted to know, besides what I've learned from you, I kind of want your take on, who is Jeramiah? It's kind of a two-part question. Who is Jeramiah? And, I know you have military background. I know you've done crazy stuff like a 103-mile race, which we'll touch on in a minute. But who do you want to know? Who do you want to be known as when new viewers come?
Yeah. And can I ask another question before I answer that one?
Yeah.
What prompted you to want to learn more about my personal story? Because that was one of the things in the car. We were on the ride up there. You were like, man, your story is pretty crazy. And so I guess from your lens, what was it that really stood out that's kind of driving some of these questions?
I think the military experience.
Yeah.
I'm heavily into like gun training and combat training and things like that, but that's only going to go so far. I might have to self-defend myself, but you're really in battle. You're really dealing with the things that, we don't see behind the scenes, and you go through things that, it makes me question whether or not I'm just being soft or, mentally I'm like, bro, this guy did this and I'm over here complaining about, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously with our connection with Chris, I just know he wouldn't put somebody in front of me that isn't worthy of, growth and experiences.
Yeah. No, really, that's good, man. So it's really, you're interested in my just general life perspective, the military perspective, because it sounds like with you adopting that or really seeing it, you'll be able to change the perspective on your life and what's considered hard or easy or whatever, right? So
exactly.
Good stuff. Okay, so to answer the question, who is Jeramiah Solven? I mean, first, I just think that I'm a guy that knows how to fail forward. I think that my life has been a series of failures, and I don't mean that in terms of, oh, poor me, I've failed over and over again, I can't get it right. I mean it as in I'm audacious, and I've had this pattern, this process, this theme in my life where I've done hard things and I put myself out there, and I just continue to fail over and over and over again until I succeed. And ideally, every single failure in my life is, it's not ideally, it has. Every single failure in my life has caused me to grow. So who do I see myself as a guy that just has continuously failed forward his whole life. And that started off as, a kid. I grew up in a small town of 300 people. It was more of a village than anything. Okay. It was really small. Everybody knew each other. I have 3 brothers, my mom and dad, super hard workers. And they, my mom was a major steal in my life, where she just believed in me a lot as a kid. And I think that we all have that person. So I had a supportive family. We were on the side of lower income growing up, and that we spent a lot of time outside. And I used to hunt a lot. I used to hunt bear with my dad. That's wow. Kind of people kind of are surprised by that. And we used to wake up super early in the morning, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, go jump in the pickup trucks, take, 10 people out and go chase down bear. And we did that to put food on the table. You know, that
Right.
bear would last us like a long time, you know, it'd last us several months, if not longer, if we, you know, we could turn it into stews and stuff like that, jerky. So my childhood was, you know, spent with my 3 brothers and my dad. And I was kind of like the leader of the pack. You know, I'm the second oldest. My oldest brother, he has Down syndrome. He was born with Down syndrome. So he's 4 years older than me. And he did look after me, which I have some funny stories about. but I as I got older, I became, like I said, the one that my parents put a lot of the responsibility on to take care of everybody. So my leadership started young, and then I got into high school. Wrestling was my sport. I did that, got obsessed about it, but I wasn't good enough to go on and compete at the college level. So I ended up finishing high school, went into a community college, spent 2 semesters there, and I was a dropout. So I was a college dropout at 18 years old. And I enlisted into the military. I started off, this is kind of where my story is a little bit unconventional compared to a lot of people, is some people join the military for patriotism. Some people join it for the college, you know, tuition. And, you know, I joined it out of desperation, to be completely honest. Like, I just needed to change my situation. I wasn't living a very fulfilled life. So I enlisted. I became an engineer, is what I originally did. And then I just did civil engineer type work. Eventually, I ended up switching over and applying to become an infantry officer. That was right after my first deployment to Iraq for 15 months. I was there for my 20th and 21st birthday, which was interesting. But yeah, I decided to switch career paths and become an infantry officer. And then I competed to get into the 75th Ranger Regiment, which is a special operations unit. It's a tier 2 special operations unit. They specialize in high value target raids and airfield seizures. That's their thing. So jumping into an airfield, clearing it, securing it, and doing that in one period of darkness in one night.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that. Did a few deployments with the Rangers, and then became an infantry company commander, where I went back overseas for my 4th combat deployment to Afghanistan. And I had 130 soldiers under my command. And it was during that deployment that I met Chris. We worked together. You know, he changed my life, taught me about entrepreneurship, business, success principles, and just amplified the path that I was currently on in personal development and growth.
Right.
Go ahead.
So just before you go past it, you told me a hilarious story when you met Chris. Man, I can't remember exactly how it went, but I just know that there was some, what was it, bombs or mortars involved?
Yeah.
You were on Zoom call.
Yeah. So I started, you know, a lot of people out there make excuses about why they can't start something. They really do. They get in their own way all the damn time, and they wait for the conditions to be perfect.
Right.
You know, and I've struggled with that myself. You know, how many times have we said, hey man, I'm gonna start my training next week. I'm going to tighten up on this diet next week. I'm going to start this business later, not now.
Right.
And I eventually just got to the point where I said, hey man, I'm not ever going to wait until the conditions are perfect. And the military did teach me a lot of that. You know, in Ranger school, you go through 62 days of just hard work and constant movement, and the conditions are never perfect for you to execute your mission. You're tired, you're sleepy, and you just go.
Right.
So doing things in the imperfect conditions have become a theme of my life. And I met Chris, and I was headed off to a deployment.
Right.
And I reached out to him because I wanted to learn more about entrepreneurship, business. And I wanted somebody that was not in the military that was successful in my life. And I didn't know anybody.
Right.
So yeah, I reached out to him, and we decided to do work together. He started mentoring me, coaching me. And during that deployment, one of our first calls, there was indirect fire coming down on the base that I was at. And that happens periodically, but this one occasion, the mortar round that hit, it landed pretty close to where I was sleeping, and shrapnel landed, you know, I don't know, maybe 50 meters from where I was sleeping at. And I was on the Zoom call with Chris, you know, Major Steele, when that round hit. And it was a shock to him. I tried to play it cool, and I was like, hey, nothing to worry about. I actually got on the ground, and because I was, you know, took cover because it was so close.
Right.
And ended up closing off the call with Chris. They blacked out the base that I was at. And then, I had to get accountability of all our troops and everything. And the next day I explained it all to him. And that was the first interaction with that, one of the first interactions with Chris, but it was all about FITFO, the FITFO mentality. FITFO mentality means figure it the fuck out.
Right.
And I wanted to work with Chris. I wanted somebody in my life that was successful, and I was committed to not doing things when they're only perfect, and pushing forward and getting the mentorship and coaching that I needed in the imperfect condition, because the conditions never are. And so that was what it resulted in, was some of those obstacles as the deployment carried on.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that when you told me that, it was just like, I have a very, a good way to like picture stuff. What do you call that? Like, I have very good vision, a very good imagination, and just the way I pictured that, and knowing what kind of guy Chris is, it was just like that was probably a funny moment that you could have captured if you would have obviously known. And, it was different circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, no, I don't really know much about the military, so I'm glad you went into that. I've known, some guys that were in it, but I never knew like their ranking or, what exactly they did in it. So, really quickly, just how important, or what type of level is the Ranger? What was the name of that again that you said you were?
Yeah. So in the Army, there's Ranger School, and then there's the Ranger Regiment.
Okay.
Okay. So Ranger School is a very tough 62-day, basically leadership and small unit tactics school.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody that's it's a very highly desirable school, and infantry officers, it's almost a requirement for you to succeed in your career. Now, you can succeed without going to Ranger School, but it's highly competitive, and about 49% of the people that get a spot actually complete Ranger School. Okay. And when you walk out, you get the gold and black tab on your shoulder. Okay. So you've seen that before.
Right.
Well, the 75th Ranger Regiment is a Ranger unit. It's filled full of Ranger qualified soldiers, and it's a special operations unit. Okay. So you need a top secret clearance to be there as an infantry officer. And if you make it through the vetting process, they're going to do some psychological testing on you. They're going to evaluate you, and the attrition rate is really, really high. And there's actually, so here's some stats for you. So every year there's about 2,000 to 3,000 infantry officers that graduate college.
Right.
Okay. That's West Point, that's ROTC, various different, ways that they commission, but they commission. Of those numbers, there's probably, so I'll just pull up the exact stats for you real quick. Yeah. So they have about 3,000 people that are infantry officers that are going to graduate school. And then the ones that get a spot to Ranger School, about 49% of those ones are going to actually pass and graduate at some point. You might have to recycle and do some phases over again.
Yeah.
So pretty high wash rate. And then if you apply for the 75th Ranger Regiment, about 76% of the people that go to RASP 2 wash out as well. So it has a 24% pass rate at RASP. So once you pass RASP, okay, then you go on to the Ranger Regiment as an officer. And when you're there, everybody's competing to typically become a Ranger platoon leader, lead a special operations platoon inside of the Ranger Regiment. But not everybody gets that opportunity. It just doesn't line up for some people. Other people are better fits in other positions. So at any given year, there's going to be about 10 Ranger strike force platoon leaders. Okay. These are Ranger platoon leaders that get picked to go overseas and lead special operations task force. Right. Okay. So I'm saying a lot of numbers right now, but basically what that looks like is if you have 3,000 infantry officers that start off, at the end of the day, I was among these 10 people in 1 year that got to go serve with special operations Rangers overseas. So it was a pretty incredible experience.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, dude. I can only imagine the grind that you had to do to really stay focused and actually get to that spot.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, it took me 7 years, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally know that grind, not necessarily as, serious per se, but, just getting getting to university was one of the craziest things that, that was on my goals list. And it was just like, I remember crying when I was like 15 because I just wanted to be on the big screen one day. And yeah, so I know that fulfillment. Now, let's be real. Once you get to your regimen and everything like that, personally, I've had issues when I got out of that or when I was transitioning from being a football player to, okay, now Norvell's here. What the hell's next? So one thing I was wondering, dude, was just like with everything you went through, what was the biggest like enough is enough moment? Because I know you probably had your ups and downs. Mental health is probably huge in that area. Just because again, I'm talking about football and I know how that affected me. So yeah. When was like the biggest, okay, I need to make a change moment in your life?
Yeah, it was a really good question. And to touch on the previous one too, about chasing a dream, for somebody that's listening, like sometimes every goal is going to take a certain amount of time. There's a gestation period between the time that you commit to a goal and the time that it comes to fruition. Okay. Right. It's almost like getting pregnant, right? Certain things in life just take time. Okay. Right. And so you're going to make a commitment to have and chase this goal, just like chasing the football dream, chasing entrepreneurship. And there is a certain gestation period that it takes for that goal to get realized. And a lot of people struggle because they smother that process. They try to make things happen faster than they can naturally happen. And actually what ends up happening is they smother the process so much, the goal actually takes longer than it should. If they would just relax and let it happen, they would kind of flow through it with ease. So that 7 years for me was a really difficult time period because I'm going through these peaks and valleys. The 7-year period that I'm talking about was when I switched over from enlisted to infantry officer and then eventually landed the dream job. And in that 7-year period, I mean, every single day I'm doubting myself. I'm wondering if I'm going to actually make it, and I think everybody can relate to that. Yeah. So some of the things that I used to stay grounded and stay positive was I visualized every single night and I pictured myself succeeding, and I used to just like try to stay grateful and pray and visualize every single night. And that helped out tremendously. And I detached from the goal. And through that, like I said, it brought a lot of peaks and valleys. I went to infantry basic officer leader course that had its ups and downs. I went to Ranger school that had its ups and downs. Then I get to my first unit that had some ups and downs. I compete in the Army's best Ranger competition, again, ups and downs. I'm sharing all this because that becomes very mentally taxing. Right. Okay. Very mentally taxing. Like winning a game, losing a game, winning a game, losing a game, man. Yeah, you're going to question your self-worth. You're going to question your identity. You're going to question fucking everything you're doing. Right. And staying the course can be very, very difficult. So I would say, during that 7-year period, and I deployed several times in that 7-year period. So my mental health I was dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of pressure for that time period. And then I landed the dream job and I went overseas. I was a Strike Force 1 Ranger platoon leader. And my final Ranger mission was we got in a really, really nasty gunfight, like really bad. And I mean, they were shooting machine guns at us. We had, several of my key leaders that got injured, shrapnel to the legs. The partner force that we were with, a good chunk of them, just around almost 10 of them were injured from grenades dropping on top of them, and they were wounded and they had to be evacuated. It was a really bad night. Thankfully, nobody died. Right. Okay. And we constantly adjusted while we were on the ground. We continued to problem solve. The Rangers that I was serving alongside and with, they just continued to press forward. I mean, these guys, it was amazing. True heroes that night. Yeah. Well, on exfil, unfortunately we had to exfil that night. And on the way out, the helicopter that I was in almost got hit with an RPG. We were getting fired on by some of the periphery compounds and around the objective. And we got back to base that night and, we crashed. The next day we wake up and a lot of my leaders are in the hospital and they have Purple Hearts and stuff for their acts of valor and getting wounded. And, right. And I was there, and that was a pretty difficult, obviously it was very, very difficult for them. It was fucking, I can only imagine the people in the hospital beds were feeling and experiencing. I felt responsible I felt like if I would have done something better, they wouldn't have got injured. They would have gotten hurt.
Right.
And, we ended up leaving Afghanistan after that deployment, shortly after. When I got back to the States, it was a requirement that the Army wanted me to go on to an academic school. I needed to go on to the Maneuver Captain's Career Course, which is a company commander school that lasts about 9 months, maybe longer if you have on leave and stuff. This is a long way to answer your question, but I had to give that backstory because during that school, I was away from my wife. She left her. She stayed in the town that we were at before. She stayed in Washington. I went on to Georgia, and I was having a really tough time just between all the deployments, the ups and downs of achievement, that mission. And I was in a really dark spot. I had rented this apartment, and I had taken a few things from my house, one of which was a old lawn chair that was completely shredded. And I used that as my computer desk because I was penny pinching. And I said, all right, I'm going to use this lawn chair. And I tied 550 cord around it. I had a picnic table that I used as my computer desk. It cost me like $10 at some store that we got it at. I don't remember which store, but so I had this picnic table for my desk, like a collapsible one that you'd bring out for a birthday party. And then I had this lawn chair, and I was having such a tough time. I was like, I'd go to class, I'd go to school, and I'd come back, and as soon as my work was done, I'd just get hammered, get completely drunk. And there was a lot of reasons for it, but basically in hindsight, I was repressing the guilt. I was repressing my feelings. I was just in a very, very dark spot. And I'd been away from my wife for a long time, and it all kind of came to a head. And there was a night where, I put a gun to my head, and I was bawling, hammered. And when I closed my eyes, I just had my hands on my knees, my elbows on my knees, and the gun was on my head. And I just closed my eyes, and all I could do was see everybody's face that I cared about and I knew cared about me and my family, and all I saw my mom, my wife, I saw all of them, and I couldn't pull the trigger, and I wanted to. So I ended up I put down the gun, and I had my moment. And the next day I woke up and I said, hey man, I got to make a change, man. And nobody knew about any of the stuff that I was going through. I didn't tell anybody, my wife didn't even know till recently.
Right.
And so I ended up making a commitment that day to make some changes in my life. I said, hey, I'm going to start serving others to a higher capacity. I'm going to set goals. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to take my personal development seriously and give up, some of all this entertainment, and focus more on myself and growth. And when I did that, things really started to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I'm glad you were able to share that, because that's some deep stuff. And I know, most people can't even, especially as men, it's hard for men to come out and tell stories like that. And that story specifically gave me the chills, because I pictured myself in that position, and it's just like, man, I would do the same thing. And you actually do have so many people or some family, or at least one person that's just rooting you on. And it's like, you got to do it for them and yourself, so hats off to you for continuing. Now, kind of switching on more of a positive note, because man, that conversation we had was crazy. And there's one thing I really want to get to, but before that, it's like, you do, what was it called? Suffering Saturdays?
Yeah.
So what specifically the hell is that?
Well, and I said that I decided to make some changes. I was already going through a transformation. I had gone through a transformation before that dark moment that I was telling you about. And I had seen some improvements in my life, but it wasn't enough. And things were so bad that I said, hey, I need to change again. And so one of the things I started doing, I started writing out every single day, 5 things that I didn't want to do. I said, I'm doing things that I want to do. I need to start focusing on things that I don't want to do. Like maybe, like giving up drinking. I don't want to give up drinking. Let me start working on that. I don't want to say no to partying and friends and stuff like that. Let me start saying no to that stuff. So this period of my life, I stopped resisting my resistance and I started confronting it. Okay. And when I did that, everything got better. The money in my bank account started going up. The network around me started getting better. My net worth went up. My fitness got better. Everything started getting better. And I started fucking changing.
Yeah.
Okay. And when that happened, I got addicted to it. And I was like, holy shit, man, this is great. You know, all this resistance that I'm confronting, it's fixing everything.
Right.
And I'm a very analytical and process-based person. So I said, okay, how can I not lose what I've gained here? And how can I double down on what's working? And so I said, dude, everything that you've done in your life, where there was fear, like dropping out of college and joining the military, whether it was Ranger School, again, fear, joining the special operations unit, I was nervous of that. Anytime you've had resistance in your life and you confronted it, you got better. And I said, so what if I just built a system in my life where I constantly confront my resistance? And Suffering Saturday was created.
Nice.
And so what I do is, every single day I wake up on Saturday, ask myself, what do I not want to do? And I do that. And it's designed to push me mentally and physically. Sometimes that's like a 32-mile run up a mountain. Other times it's like, meditate for a full hour. And that helps me stay on point. So I highly recommend it for somebody that wants to push themselves and get challenged, because I've seen it change other people's lives too, since been coaching my clients.
Right.
This, help you make more money. I watched this lady, her entire house was a disaster. And her Suffering Saturday was just like her laundry room. It had 2 weeks worth of laundry inside of it.
Right.
And she wrote it on there, Suffering Saturday, do my workout plus this laundry room. She did the laundry room. Next thing you know, the whole house was transformed. She told me that the kids could eat off the floor. It was so cleaned. Okay. Right. Then the next thing you know, she's making more money because she was a musician. She started doing more outreach. Okay. Telling people about our services. She's confronting all these things she's avoiding, man. Her life is completely gets better. So that's what Suffering Saturday is. And anybody can do it to improve their life.
And that's perfect leading into the next part of that, which was just, so somebody like me, we spoke briefly. I'm ready. I was a defensive tackle for everybody that knows what that is. I played at like 305. Right now I'm at like 290. I want to drop down to like 250. So with keeping that goal in mind and maybe some other goals, how would somebody like me start a Suffering Saturday tomorrow?
Yeah. My favorite thing to do is literally just make the decision when you wake up. What do I not want to do today that's going to get me closer to my goal? So that question is the azimuth.
Right.
Okay. And it's going to start guiding you. You're going to have some things pop up. Like maybe cardio comes to mind. Maybe like you got invited to go out Saturday night and go hang out with the boys and drink. And then that's like a high risk time because you're going to end up slipping on the diet. So you get clear about what's ahead of you for Saturday and you just do something that you don't want to do. Now it's going to depend on the person, right? Everybody's gonna have different answers there. And it's a chance for you to be real fucking honest with yourself and pick the thing that you don't want to do the most.
Right.
Okay. So for example, it could be, hey, I'm gonna go out, but I'm not gonna drink tonight. That's my Suffering Saturday. No drinking. Oh, and this morning I'm gonna do some cardio this morning. Right.
Right.
And whatever, right? Like it's something like that. So that's a really good way to get started. Another thing for me to do when I want to tighten up on my diet, again, I'm big into the resistance. What I do is a thing called the Solven No diet. And I would start that on my Saturday. I would say, all right, Saturday, I'm starting this motherfucker. And the Solven No diet is I list out all the things that I think are holding me back from being the exact body fat that I want. Okay. So for me, what that is, it's like no fast food, no alcohol, no sodas, no sweet. And this is a weird one, but it's no ketchup and table sugar. And the reason why is because ketchup, I'll like overdo it on ketchup. That's my thing. Okay. Yeah. Table sugar, I had a period of my life where I was putting it in my coffee like all the time. So everybody's going to have things in their life that they're overdoing it on or binging on, or that are, I like to use Pareto's principle. This is a good one for the audience. If you're trying to figure out how to get in great shape, Pareto's principle says it's also called the 80-20 rule. Mm-hmm. And what it means is like 20% causes 80% of the result. Okay. So it's a universal law. And inside of your diet, there's 20% of your diet that's causing 80% of the problem. Mm. So I put my effort on the 20%. And for me, it's those handful of things. If I stick to those, then I can eat whatever the hell else I want. Now, if I start overdoing it with the other things, then I can add to my no diet. For example, maybe I notice myself like binge eating on healthy foods. And I'm like, man, I'm eating so many, and I say healthy foods, but maybe it's carbs and meat and stuff like that. Right. And I'm like, man, I'm overdoing it here. And this is the problem. So now I create a rule. Hey man, only one serving per meal.
Nice.
right? And I can add to it. So it's a really simple concept for somebody to just look at like, hey man, what are the 20% that's holding me back? It's cutting 80% of the problem. When I was working on my finances initially, I looked at the 20%. I said, hey, what's causing 80% of my financial issues? And I started and it's going to be the thing that you're talking yourself out of being a problem.
Right.
Okay. So for me, it was at the time I was going out and socially drinking pretty much routinely every Friday night.
Right.
And then I'm spending $300, $400, $500 on Friday and Saturday night on food and drinks and shit. Next thing I know, like my bill at the end of the month, and I'm up like a couple grand on just bullshit. Right. So it was but here I was at that same point in time, I'm addressing all the periphery issues. I'm like, no, tighten up on your budget over here. Tighten up on this over here. Maybe you can figure out how to cut that. And I'm like, bro, just address the core issue, the 20%, which is this Friday night thing that you're doing, and it's fucking everything up.
Yeah.
So that's what people can do.
Yeah, no, that one is huge for me. That's one of the reasons why I left. Miami was like a dream city for me, but I was in a place where my rent was only, $750, and it was like, I'm making way more than that. And I'm able to go out every weekend. I got all my friends, my hometown friends there. You just get complacent. You get caught in like this, I think we called it the doom loop.
Doom loop. Yeah.
You get caught in that. And I seen it physically happening to me. And mentally it was just like, you're supposed to be better, but you're just like, I'm so comfortable going out with my friends. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know you've personally helped me already with just how to, attack the day and win the day without, completely stressing, trying to work 24 hours a day, just because I think that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
I like that system. Now, I know you don't do this every Suffering Saturday, but this is one of my favorite stories that you did, just because, again, it's one of those stories where if I pictured myself going through these things, it's like, bro, I don't even know if I could do that until you're actually doing it. You know what I mean? I think you kind of went through that. So it's the 103-mile run, bro. Can you just talk about that experience a little bit and how, you can kind of pertain that to life?
Yeah. With that, I shared that story about how I ran 103 miles at 11,000 feet in the Colorado Rockies with you. I know for a lot of people, it's kind of mind blowing, but for you, what draws you to that story?
Well, I think just because for 21, 22 years of my life, I played 4 quarters at a time. And I understand that when you do races, when you do, anything, there's always different segments. So for instance, for the first for the first year that I was at university, I actually wanted to go back home. I didn't know anybody. It was hard. I was waking up at 5 a.m. I thought that was the craziest thing then. My mom's not there to, you know what I'm saying, maybe make me breakfast. My mom was a teacher, so we'd always have the same schedule. Yeah. So my mom would make a good breakfast. I got to make my own breakfast, or I got to go, you know what I mean? And it was just like, so when you told this story, it was just like, it resonated with me. And I think a lot of people can understand that, like, this might just be the first, whatever mile it is. I know you said the 20th mile was like one of the craziest parts. Yep. So when you told that story, it was like, holy, this is literally the road to success. I don't care how many miles. It could be 10 miles if you're only running 10. It's like the first couple miles is very, very important to starting out entrepreneurship or anything like that. So I just wanted you to kind of touch base on how that affected you, one, because you got some crazy stories with that, but yeah, how somebody like me could take that lesson and just, think of you when I get tired in the first half of it.
Yeah. Well, we're talking a lot about goals today, and we're talking a lot about transformation as well. And no matter what you're trying to achieve in life, there's going to be phases and seasons to it. There really will. But the problem with a lot of us is that we end up getting to we transform or we change, and then we stay there. We get complacent, and then we fail to continue to evolve and grow. And the 103-mile race that I did, it really is symbolic of growth. And it was a very, very tough race. And I signed up for it on a Sunday, and I ran it the following Saturday. So 6 days later, it was a very ballsy move. But when I signed up for it, I got inspired. Okay. And everybody's been inspired by somebody on social media, maybe somebody they know, and they get inspired and then they don't do anything. They say, hey man, it's great. Right. They double click on it's a social media post, and they scroll right past it and they go on to another one. And it's like they give themselves that little dopamine hit, but there's no action tied to the inspiration, to the thing that they're inspired of doing. So maybe they see the guy that's like, he's got this great life. He's a business owner and he's an entrepreneur and he's living the high life. And they're like, man, that looks so cool. I'm inspired. I'm going to do that one day. Double click, boom, they scroll. Well, they just missed their opportunity to get close to becoming that guy.
Right.
You know, what one person could do, another person can do. And when you start getting inspired, that's your opportunity to start taking action instead of living in this like cycle of just eating social media candy.
Right.
That's really what it is. It's just candy for your brain. You're just like, oh, that's cool. Nice little hit there. That feels good. That feels good. But your life is not getting better.
Right.
Okay. And so when I was sitting there on Sunday, I was scrolling through social media just like anybody. And I saw this guy pop up and he had run ultras before. All right. He actually would run like a marathon a day and he runs around and he shoots a bow sometimes. Some of you guys might know him. Okay. But yeah. So I got inspired and I said, man, that looks cool. I'm going to do something like that one day. I'm going to run one of these ultras one day. And for me, I want to live in a state of action all the time. And I don't ever want to become one of those people that simply is just inspired, but doesn't move towards their goals.
Right.
So I have this rule with myself, and this is good for anybody to do. Anytime you're inspired, don't live in a state of want, live in a state of action. Okay. So I saw this post and I was like, man, I really want to do that. Well, let me take some action right now. And so I immediately got onto Google and I started looking for races. And I was like, oh, hey, ultra races in my area. And I start scrolling. And I'm like, oh shit, there's one next weekend. And I don't really know much about ultra racing. And I see it and I'm like, it's a 100-miler. And I was like, ooh, I wonder how long it'd take to do 100 miles. Right.
Right.
And they say it's a 36-hour race. And I'm like, well, I've moved on foot before for 36 hours. And I start kind of like breaking it down to a micro level. And I'm like, dude, I think I could do this. I sign up for it right away. Right. And then I kind of have an oh shit moment. And I'm like, this is a big fucking goal that I got to tackle. Okay. And what I was going through right here, this is the goal setting process. In every goal that you want to achieve, there's an area called the comfort zone. Okay. I was sitting on my couch, comfortable.
Right.
Hey man, I'm chilling. AC's on. I got fucking sweatpants on. I'm scrolling through. This is great, man. Yeah. A 100-mile race looks really cool right now from my comfort zone.
Right. Of course.
So you're going to get inspired. You're going to have an opportunity to take action. And then you have to get outside the comfort zone. So that's what I ended up doing. I signed up for the race and that put me into, really it started getting me into the pain cave a little bit. Right. So actually it's the terror barrier is what it is.
Right.
The terror barrier is, you're scared, you're nervous, you're worried about the unknown. And it usually comes right after you've taken a little bit of action towards the goal. Okay. So I ended up calling a buddy and I asked him because he had done some races before. I told him, hey, can you give me some lessons learned about 100 miles? He told me a little bit. I called some great people in my life. I told them what I was doing. They talked some empowering words into me. Hey man, you got this. You're tough, blah, blah, blah. I call those people my power people, get some really good inner dialogue going that really fuels me up mentally for the race. And then I needed an emotional reason to do the goal. Okay. And I think this is where a lot of people fuck up. A lot of people set a goal, but it's a logical reason, not an emotional reason.
Right.
Okay. You got to have both. A logical reason is, hey man, I want to become an entrepreneur because there's no financial ceiling and I could live a really cool life. An emotional reason is, man, if I succeed in this one area that I'm looking at, I can literally provide for my entire family. I can help my mom get a new house. I can pay for my grandparents to live in a great spot. And you start to feel it in your heart.
Right.
In order to achieve anything, like when I joined the 75th Ranger Regiment, you got to have logical and emotional reasons for wanting to achieve the goal. And you got to stay connected to that fire every single day.
Absolutely.
So I said, hey, what's the logical goal? The logical goal is I want to do this race. What's the emotional reason that I can attach to this goal? And I started digging and thinking and working really hard. And I said, you know what? This race is symbolic. It's symbolic of my commitment to everything else that I'm working in life. And I said, if I can go out, do this race and give it my absolute all, then I'm guaranteed to be committed to these other goals in my life that I'm working towards that have a gestation period that I can't really get right now.
Right.
Right. It was a training ground for me in my head. So I make that commitment. I link the goal to my future success. I get outside my comfort zone and I get into the pain cave or the terror barrier. I start worrying. I start kind of like going through just all the normal things that everybody goes through with a goal. I take an Uber from my house to the race site. Okay.
Yeah.
Fucking Uber. I took an Uber to this thing.
Right.
Okay. And I'm like, I know nothing about ultra racing. I got a bag full of like shoes and snacks. And it was almost disrespectful the way that I showed up to this race. Okay.
Right.
Because you get out there and guys are wearing all this great equipment. They're prepped. They've been training for years. You know what I mean? For their first ultra. And I show up like some asshole. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyways, I get out there. I get to my hotel at about, 8 o'clock. I check in. I finally fall asleep about 10 p.m. I get up at 2 a.m., get about 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And I'm actually doing 75 hard in this window as well. So that's something that I haven't ever shared before. I'm doing 75 hard, which is a really tough program by Andy Frisella. I'm doing it at the same time. So I get up, I read my 10 pages. Start drinking my water. I take my picture and then I head out to the race. Well, I take off and they say go, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I know nothing about racing still. And I start learning about racing as I'm going. Right. I'm like, this is the FitFo mentality. I'm going to figure it the fuck out. Like I'm either going to, in my head, I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I don't make it. Okay. It's going to suck. And I don't want to, but that's a horrible feeling. But I'm going to figure this shit the fuck out. Right. So I get out there, I start learning from these guys and I'm like, hey, when do you guys sleep? What do you eat while you're out here? They start sharing little techniques and strategies with me. And of course I'm running way too fast because these guys are like seasoned, ultra racers.
Right.
And I immediately blow up. And this is at 11,000 feet. So, we start at 9,000 feet. We go all the way up to like 13,500, which is pretty tough, in terms of altitude.
Yeah. And
the first 10 miles, 20 miles is all uphill. So we're running uphill for 10 to 20 miles and I'm trying to learn as I go. Okay. So I'm in this pace that I call the pain cave. Okay. It's a term that's used in ultra racing, but it exists in your goals as well. Okay. Now, whenever you change a chapter in life, you do something, you mix it up, you get outside your comfort zone, you get through the terror barrier, you're going to be in that pain cave and it's going to start hurting. You're going to get discouraged. At this time I had a headache. I was nauseous. I was confused. I was questioning my goal and I hurt. And I got to mile 20 and I was completely defeated. I was like, man, my head was pounding so bad. I was like, they're going to have to pull me off this mountain they're going to have to fly me out because we're way at the top of this thing. And there's no way I can come off of this. I go, I'm going to be a casualty out here.
Right.
And I'm like, and this is only mile 20. Right. And I'm like, I still got 80 miles to go. So I started thinking about all the people that I had told that I was doing this goal to. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. You share your goal with people. And you get out there and you think you're going to fail and you start thinking about everything, letting them down. You think about being a failure. You attach your identity to the event too. And you're like, I'm a failure. Well, failure is an event. It's not a person, first of all. Right. But anyways, I decide, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick pause and regroup. It's my last ditch effort to get my shit together. And I lay down into the woods and I kind of like tuck away like a wounded animal. Or like an old dog would do to like pass away, right? I kind of hide myself. I'm embarrassed.
Right.
And I tuck away and I take off my shoes and I'm like completely messed up. And I lay down and I set my alarm for 25 minutes and I start like thinking and the little voices in my head start going off. The inner dialogue starts happening and I'm thinking I'm a quitter, I'm a failure, all this negative self-talk. And then there was this moment where like, I just got hit with this energy and it was like, God struck me.
Right. And
it was the empowering voice. And this happens when you're in the pain cave. Okay. If you keep going, you're going to have this voice of reassurance that comes through.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that happened for me. And it came through and was like, listen, we don't quit. Not only that, but your goals are too important for you to quit. And it was like, I had an out of body experience. My mind separated from my body. And they were in a conversation and my mind told my body, listen, you're going to get up or I'm going to drag you through the next 80 fucking miles by your corpse. Yeah. So I started digging in and I got into this next zone, which is called the potential barrier. Okay. The potential barrier feels like you're in like the pain cave is dark. It's cold. It's lonely. It's hard. The potential barrier is this liquid like type feeling where you're almost like swimming through the cave that you went into. You can't breathe. You almost feel childlike inside of there.
Yeah.
Okay. Like where you want to quit and throw a tantrum and you're super emotional. Your hormones are all over the place. You want to ball. Okay.
Rage
It's
quit.
just
Rage quit.
Yeah,
You want to rage
exactly.
quit.
Yeah. And so but I call it the potential barrier because if you just keep going, you're going to you'll eventually get to the other side. You're not going to know when it's going to end. Okay. But for me, it was at the backside of this hill. It was at mile 40. I continued to put one foot in front of the other. I got to the top of this hill and it was like, I got this big, all the clouds, all the darkness lifted. I got this energy and this voice was like, you're going to finish this race. And I was on the other side of the potential barrier. And from there, I knew I was going to complete the race. Now I still had to do a lot of running. I still had 60 more miles to go. I had to run throughout the night. I almost got hypothermia. I mean, it was brutal and I almost missed several of the time hacks to finish the race. But I at the very end, the last couple miles, I was coming in and guys were slowing down and they were like, hey, they were celebrating. We're going to make it. We made the cutoff time. And every goal that you go to, you have a choice. You can run the score up or you can try to glide it in and take it easy.
Absolutely.
Okay. For me, I wanted to run the score up. I said, I didn't come out here to just finish the race. I came out here to give my best. And so I'm in like basically fucking tears as I'm finishing this thing and I'm trying to run. And I feel like I'm sprinting, but I'm doing like 10-minute miles.
Right.
Okay. And my feet feel like they're going to explode. I'm running. And as I come towards the finish line, my wife's there, she's cheering me on and I didn't even look at her. I was in this like just trance and of like, holy shit, I can't believe I just finished that. And I came through the finish line and it was a transformative experience. When I got through, I put my hands on my knees real quick. I kind of looked around and some of the other members that raced, they came over to me. They're like, holy shit, dude. And I was like, what's up? They're like, you were looking pretty rough out there. I was like, yeah, I was. They're like, we didn't think you were going to make it. And I was like, neither did I.
Yeah.
So I ended up finishing the race. Yeah.
Yeah. Bro, I just before I lost it, my thought, dude, I think something just hit me just as we're talking that you've been through that race before. It was just in different aspects. So absolutely. I don't think if you were sitting on your knees with the gun to your head, that maybe that person wouldn't have been able to finish that race, but you said, I have to finish this race. So I think a lot of people that are listening and things like that, I've been through it personally. I've already been through the things that I'm going to go through. It's just whether or not you remember it or you hone into that subconscious part of it. I think that's huge. And like, even when I was thinking of like what I should ask about this race specifically, it didn't just hit until just now. It's like, dude, you've already done that race. You just had to physically do it. That's crazy. And I don't know if I'd ever put myself through that, but you know what? Maybe that's one of my Suffering Saturday goals before I die, is just to run 103 miles.
Well, sometimes it's 2 miles, sometimes it's 10 miles.
Right.
And those barriers all exist because when I first came into the military, I was scared of 2 miles, man.
Yeah.
I was scared of 2 miles and I would go through all the same feelings, the comfort zone, the terror barrier, the pain cave, and the backside of the potential barrier where I was just sprinting my ass off trying to get through it. I had runs where I threw up afterwards and I would fear the 2 mile. Right. Okay. So it's all relative. And you're right. I'd been in that race before. I did it in that dark time where I had a gun to my head. I've been in that place several times. And I think it's just important, part of the process for goals and achievement. Everybody's heard it before. It's just like, just don't quit. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's like one of my favorite people in the world is this man his name is Michael Ortiz. He's ran 100 consecutive 100-mile races. Okay. He ran 100 of them every week for 100 weeks.
Right.
One of my favorite people in the world. He actually commented after I did that race. He was like, dude, that was your first ultra. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and you finished that? He's like, that's like one of the top ultras in the entire country. He's like, that's not normal.
Right.
Okay. He's like, you shouldn't have finished that thing. And I was like, bro, I just don't quit. I guess that's my thing, my skill. Right.
Yeah.
And he ran those 100 miles, those 100 milers. And his message from all of that, I said, hey, what's your best piece of advice for somebody that's going through something difficult? He said, don't quit at the hard spot. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, you're going to have these ebbs and flows trying to pursue your goal. You're going to have great days, peaks and valleys. But really what success and achievement comes down to is not quitting at the hard spot. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're going to quit, fine, quit tomorrow, but not today, not when it's hard, not in this moment. I'll quit later, but not right now.
Right. And I think again, I like to put myself in other people's position, or when I vividly picture the experiences you went through, it's like the hard part was the battle that you were in. And it's like, you physically are in battle. Imagine just walking out then, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you could finish that, now I know some circumstances you can't really control, but that's life, right? That's exactly how it is. Now, real quick, I just want to kind of switch over from, I know you're huge on leadership, and that's kind of what you teach. You obviously have the background for it, the credibility for it. What are some things that, some people might be thinking, am I a leader? Now I know you can become a leader. I know you can work on those skills, but what's something right off the bat that you're like, man, this guy could be a really good leader? What are some of those traits?
Well, first thing that everybody should realize when it comes to leadership is you are one no matter what.
Ooh, nice.
Okay. So it's like, are you acknowledging the fact that you're a leader? You're leading somebody right now, right? Everybody is. It could be your parents. It could be your kids. It could be your friends. It's just that most people aren't taking ownership that they are leading others right now.
Ooh, nice. That's powerful.
That's the facts, man. Okay. So the quicker people realize that they are leading others is the moment they can actually improve themselves and their team. But if most people want to remain ignorant, and they're doing themselves and their teams a disservice. It's like, dude, you're already a leader. Now you just need to stop fucking it up.
Right. Yeah, no, honestly. Wow.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that is perfect. That answered the question just like that. We already are a leader, but kind of off of that. So how would somebody go about working on, what do you think the most important skill is to work on as a leader?
Constant improvement. Straight up. People don't follow people that aren't a good example.
Right.
Okay. I had this question on Instagram Live recently. Somebody said, hey, how can I get my team that's not performing to rise up? And I said, you need to become more inspirational. Okay. Because what happens, a lot of people try to lead through encouragement. They say, hey man, let's go tackle this. Let's go. And if they throw some energy behind it, they expect their whole team to come and follow them.
Right.
But that's not how leadership works. Leadership works by setting an example that inspires others. Okay. So if you want to get your team to go with you, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your kids, and they're not doing it, then the ownership comes back to the leader. And I have to raise my personal standards. Okay. If they're not moving, that means I'm not inspirational enough. I'm not doing a good enough job, because people are human bullshit detectors. Right. If you're a liar, if you're a fraud, if you are cutting corners, if you're not being your absolute best, when you tell people and you try to get people to come along and help you accomplish your mission or do something that pushes them, they're going to question you.
Yeah. Why
should I listen to this guy? Your example can destroy your credibility. So if they're not listening, I need to raise my example. Now, that's not to say that you have to be perfect.
Right.
Okay. Because people, they'll follow imperfection. And in fact, when a leader shows his imperfections, he's more relatable.
Right.
Okay. People aren't gravitated towards the superhero in life. They're gravitated towards the guide. Okay. The superhero is, I'm perfect. I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. I'm fucking amazing. Right. But really, they're probably got some imperfections that they're hiding behind closed doors. People don't follow that person.
Right.
The people that they follow is the guide. Hey man, I've gotten some success in this area of my life. I've helped some other people do it. I'm pushing myself. I'm really, really trying. And I can show you some of the best things that I've learned along the way that can get you where you want to go. People will follow that.
Yeah.
So some things that somebody can do is they need to find a way to tighten up and set themselves to an even higher example. The way I like to look at it is there's a gap between you and the people you're leading. Okay. So if I'm operating at 100%, or at least what I think is 100%, and the people around me are at like 70, 60%. Okay. The team around me is down there, and I want them to get up to 100%. I see this a lot with CEOs. So I want my team to be on my level, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, if you want them to come up to 100, you need to go up to 130. Because you go to 130, that's going to cause them to come up to the 100. It doesn't work where you're going to be neck and neck. Now, your team can be better than you in a lot of ways. They can be 100 degrees or, at 100%, and you're at 80% compared to them, maybe with like I see this with entrepreneurs sometimes. Sometimes they're leading teams and the teams are way more fit than they are.
Right.
Okay. And they're like, well, I'm really, really trying. I know I'm ahead of you guys in business and this thing. And so you can have this split where you're not better than everybody at everything and they'll still follow, but your goal should be to be better than everybody at everything by pushing yourself to hit new levels, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, when I think of a team or anything like that, I might not be better than this person at that specific skill, but overall I will work, you work harder. Essentially you're doing the little behind the scenes, the little details that just put you over just a little bit like that. So I think that's huge. And the last question I had for you, just going in, because you mentioned, people like to follow and look up to people that can be vulnerable and say, listen, I'm not very good at this. I'm not very good at that, which we can all relate to. Like you said, we're not perfect. So for you personally, as a leader and obviously continuously striving leader, what do you struggle with the most as a leader?
Really good question. So it used to be, I talked about what it used to be and then what it probably currently is. So it used to be micromanagement, because when you want to succeed at something and you have a team that's going to help you achieve that, one of the natural things to do, if you're insecure about whether or not you can actually accomplish the mission, you're going to start getting into the weeds with things and you're going to start like overstepping onto people, right? No, don't do it like this. Don't do it like this. But it's just your insecurity that's coming out. So I've learned to put my ego in the back seat and be like, bro, and not be so insecure and allow people to just do what they need to do. So it used to be insecurity, or it used to be micromanaging. Today it's not that. I would say my biggest challenge is, man,
It's hard. I think it's hard. It's hard sometimes to even reflect. Like I got asked a question last week and it was just like, it was something along the lines of like, what do you struggle with the most when it comes to, because I'm kind of like you in the sense where like, I just love to continue going. Like I'll just do it, keep going. But it's like, when you're in that process, what is your personal weakness? And I think, I looked and I think for me, it was just consistency. And I could be completely honest with that. I'll go a whole week where I'm just killing it. Sunday, I'm like, oh, I just killed it last week. And Monday, I'm not doing the same thing. And that's what I've struggled with a lot. And that's what I really have to work on. So, maybe some of the things as a leader, what would you say that you are continuously working on right now? Like, what is something you focus on?
No, it's like I said, it's a great question. There's just so many things I'm constantly working on. But the first thing that comes to mind is just being intentional and present with the activity that I'm currently focused on. Okay. So one of my weaknesses, and it's a little bit of a strength, as I look into the future a lot, and I can get hyper focused on where I want to go, where I want the team to go. But if I do that at the wrong place in the wrong time, it's inappropriate and I'm not leading the team that I'm with to the best of my ability. So for example, if I'm always focused on work and then I go have dinner with my wife and I don't shut the fuck up about work at dinner, it's like, that's not good leadership, bro. Like shelve that stuff and go all in on the conversation that you're having with her. So I'm high energy and I get very, very obsessed on the things that I'm passionate about. So for me, it's constantly making sure that I'm aware enough of when I'm deviating from the current activity. If I need to be right where my feet are, be present in this thing. If I'm on this call, I'm doing just this call. If I'm at dinner, I'm doing just dinner, and just making that a process in my life so that I don't take away anything from the people that I'm with.
Nice. Okay. So being in the present moment, kind of just, I think that could also cause a lot of people to quit too, because I personally have been in positions where I'm overthinking. We had this conversation actually where I was like, dude, I want to be in front of my audience, but I'm just not where I want to be yet. Or, I want to do work on this goal, but I haven't achieved this. And it's like, you get all this frustration and confusion that it makes you kind of sit back like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. But if you just focus on, hey, make a call specifically, for some of my goals, make 5 calls today. And then boom, check that off, and then go to the gym. And then it's like, it just adds up and compounds. And next thing you know, you're doing the stuff that you were like, oh, I didn't even know how to do this before.
Yeah. It's figuring out a best way to keep your feet right stay where your feet are, be present in the actions that you're currently in. And then I would say to add to that is you need to make sure you're taking some time out for yourself. And my favorite, I think this is where a lot of people mess up, is they live in a state of action or procrastination all the time. One of the two, those two extremes. And I think that there's a certain flow state that you get into when you are taking action, but then you can also take a breather. Okay. And so for me, what that looks like is in the morning, is in the evenings. I used to kind of just go until I crashed. But now I use the morning to get primed. I visualize, I've been doing this for years, with major steels work and stuff. And then in the evening too, the evening is one where I will typically slip if I'm not super paying attention to my night routine. I will just kind of go through the doom loop in the evening and just crash. Where now these days I'm making sure that I'm feeding my brain good information before I go to bed. I'm doing personal development when I wake up. I'm doing personal development when I go to sleep. I'm reviewing my goals when I wake up. I'm reviewing my goals when I go to sleep. And then I'm constantly being an architect and really it's more like a gardener. I'm being a gardener of my mind. I'm planting, I'm harvesting, and I'm making sure good stuff is in there at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. And I think that is key to being in that state that we're talking about.
Yeah. And just to add on that personally, I think going out of your way on a less of a business note of like, how am I going to get money? How am I going to get results? And going out of your way and meeting people, like-minded individuals. Like the energy that I had when I came back from hanging out with you and our mentor was just crazy. And like, even now it's just like, after these conversations, you just want to do things. So you kind of have to put everything together, right? Like you use that hustler mentality, that grind to effectively kill your goals. But then when you're not doing that, it doesn't have to be necessarily, going out drinking, playing video games. You can still be productive, but relaxed. I can go have a drink with you or go have like a nice meal or something, but we're still talking about, personal development, where you want to go, where I want to go. And it's really powerful.
Yeah. Adopt the identity of investor. If you do that, you're going to invest into everything around you. You're going to invest into the people. You're going to invest into yourself. Investor doesn't just mean I put my money into something and it grows. An investor means I call my friends. It means that I spend quality time with my wife and girlfriend, and I just continue to pour every top opportunity I get. And maybe that investment is, hey man, I'm going to invest in myself right now with this motherfucking nap.
Right. No, honestly, if you need it. Right. And lastly, the last thing I have too is just personal experience here is getting around people, is also pertaining to your goals. So me personally, I'm looking for a financial gain, right? Like I want to be able to learn how to make more money and be financially, I don't really like saying financially free, but I like to be comfortable to the point where I can now work on, this part of me or that part of me and whatever it is. But I think it's very important to get around those people as well that are ahead of you or doing, the same type of goals, because I heard this one story where it's like, if you get a group of people, even if you're just sitting near them listening, that are talking about, they're all ice cream experts. You know how much ice cream you're going to know about by the end of that conversation? You know what I mean? So imagine what would happen with money, with fitness, with relationships, So to anybody listening, just me personally, I met Jeramiah a couple of weeks ago. Amazing dude. He's already helped me, some of my personal goals, but he's helped me get some calls going and scheduling some of those. And it's just, I always think of you in a way where I'm like, am I doing enough? Because this guy just did this and I'm over here crying about this. You know what I mean? So thanks for having me, dude. I appreciate the opportunity. And I look forward to doing some more collabs with you, and appreciate it.
Hey, dude, tell the guys where they can follow you on Instagram if they want to.
Yeah.
Is that the best place? Because I'd like them to connect with you too. Share your
Instagram, any social media, honestly, but Instagram's where I'm most active. You can follow me at Valley Unlimited. There's 3 L's. At Valley Unlimited.
Cool, man. Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming in. Great questions. I think the audience got to hear some stories that with some great lessons that they can bring into their own personal life. And everybody, I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in, for sharing the message, and just continuing to be better leaders for yourself and for the families and teams that you lead. So with that being said, if you did find it valuable today, share it with a friend or leave a review, take some action to help us out on our side, spread the message. And that's all that we ask. But other than that, just take something from today and put it into action. Maybe there was a part that was inspiring to you. Maybe you got inspired to get outside your comfort zone and you can start shaking things up. So you can take some action today and don't sleep on it. Make the most out of now. But that's all we have for today, guys. I appreciate all of you. Share the episode, and until next time, be the leader.
I need some motivation. Every day I try a little harder, but my dedication. Keep my head way, way above the water. Proud of myself when I yell at the wall. Begging to run, but I needed to crawl. I see the finish line up ahead, trying to get traction from all of this tread. I am a king, I am a queen, I am more than the people can see. I am strong when I'm needing to be. Vulnerability's nothing to me. You can try, but I'm unshakable. My successes is never debatable. I'm chameleon, I'm so interchangeable. Here's to you and all that you are capable. You gotta go hard, better get it. You